You turn the key on a car with 200,000 miles on it. It starts on the first try, quiet, smooth, like it rolled off the lot yesterday. I saw that with my own eyes in Japan, and it broke something in my head, because for 30 years I believed a car was supposed to fall apart. I believed rust, rattles, and repair bills were just the price of driving. I was wrong. The Japanese quietly figured out how to make an ordinary car outlast 2 American cars on less money, using habits nobody here ever taught me. I first noticed it in a narrow driveway outside Kanazawa, a small silver sedan from the late 1990s, spotless, its owner wiping the door seals with a cloth before dawn. That one small thing led me down a rabbit hole I could not climb out of. And by the end of this, I am going to hand you the single trick I found buried in a 1951 Japanese transport law, the one that changed how I own a car forever. Every bit of this works in your driveway, starting today. Let me back up and tell you how this started. I went to Japan expecting bullet trains and robots. What I did not expect was the cars. Not the flashy ones, the ordinary ones. The little sedans and boxy vans parked in tight neighborhood lots. I kept seeing old cars that looked new, not restored, not babied show cars. Daily drivers, 20 years old, still tight and clean, and running like a sewing machine. I asked a retired mechanic in Toyama about it. He was in his 70s, hands like leather, and he laughed at me. He said, Americans buy cars and then wait for them to die. He said the Japanese buy cars and then refuse to let them age. Same machine, completely different relationship. That sentence sat in my chest for the rest of the trip. The first thing I learned was so simple it embarrassed me. When these folks park, most of them back in. Every time. Reverse into the spot, nose facing out. I thought it was just a quirk. It is not. There is a reason, and once I understood it, I could not unsee it. When you back into a parking space, you are guiding the car into a fixed spot while your engine is warm and your senses are fresh. When you leave, you pull straight out, forward, with full visibility, in the direction of moving traffic and moving people. The most dangerous moment in any parking lot is reversing out blind between 2 tall vehicles. The Japanese simply move that risk to the safer moment. Insurance data from their own driving federation has shown for years that a large share of low-speed collisions happen while backing out of spaces. They remove that danger with a habit that costs nothing. But there was something else the mechanic told me that day, and it flipped my understanding of my own engine completely. He asked me how long I let my car warm up on a cold morning. I told him the truth. 5 minutes, sometimes 10, sitting in the driveway with the heater running, letting it idle while I finished my coffee. I thought I was being kind to the engine. He shook his head slowly, the way you do at a child. Here is what I did not know. On the old carbureted engines our fathers drove, long idling made sense. But every fuel-injected car built since roughly the late 1980s does not need it. Worse, a cold idling engine runs rich, dumping extra fuel that washes the thin oil film off your cylinder walls and dilutes the oil in your pan. You are not protecting the engine. You are slowly scrubbing it raw while burning gas to sit still. The Japanese method is different, and it is what their own manufacturers quietly recommend. Start the car. Give it 30 seconds, maybe a minute in deep cold, just long enough for oil pressure to come up. Then drive gently. Low speed, light throttle, no hard acceleration for the first few minutes. The engine warms fastest under a light load, and it warms evenly, transmission and all. That mechanic told me he had engines in his shop with 300,000 kilometers on them, original internals, because their owners never let them sit and idle cold. I felt cheated. Because nobody ever told me, and I started to wonder why. That is when the picture got darker. And I want to be honest with you about what I started to see. Think about who benefits when your car dies young. Think about who benefits when you idle away fuel every winter morning. Think about who benefits when you believe a car is old and finished at 100,000 miles, when the Japanese are casually driving past 300,000 on the same block. There is an entire economy built around you replacing your car every few years, and every habit that keeps a car alive longer is a habit that quietly costs that economy money. Nobody has to conspire. They just never had a reason to teach you the opposite, and so the knowledge that keeps a car alive got left out of the story you were raised on. I went further, and the next thing I found was about rust, which is the silent killer of almost every car in the northern half of this country. In the snow regions of Japan, in Hokkaido and the mountain towns, they salt the roads just like we do. Salt eats steel. It is the reason so many cars in cold climates rot out underneath while the engine still runs perfectly. I always assumed that was just fate. You live where it snows, your car rusts, end of story. But in those regions, owners do something most Americans never think about. They rinse the underside of the car. Not the paint, the underside. After driving on salted roads, they take a hose or drive through the underbody spray at the wash, and they flush the salt off the frame, the brake lines, the subframe, before it sits and eats. Some older folks do it in their own driveway with a simple wand. A few dollars of water against thousands of dollars of frame rot. I had washed the shine on my hood for 30 years and never once thought to wash the part of the car that actually kills it. And there was a detail underneath even that one. When they undercoat a car in those regions, they do it before the first winter, not after the rust starts. Prevention while the metal is still clean. Once rust begins, coating over it just traps it and lets it grow in the dark. The whole philosophy was the opposite of mine. I fixed things after they broke. They protected things before they could. That flipped a switch in me, because I realized every one of these tricks came from the same root idea, and I need you to understand that root, because it is the thing that ties all 17 together. The idea is this. In Japan, a car is not a disposable appliance you use up and throw away. It is a responsibility you maintain so it never reaches the point of failure. That single shift in thinking is worth more than any product you could ever buy, and it shows up in the smallest habits. Take the interior. Ride in an older Japanese person's car and you will notice something strange. It smells like nothing. No musty carpet. No stale air. The seats are often covered, sometimes with simple cloth or fitted covers, and many drivers genuinely keep the cabin near spotless. Some remove their outdoor shoes for long drives. I used to roll my eyes at that. Then I learned why it matters beyond tidiness. Grit and moisture ground into carpet and seats is what breaks down an interior and grows the mold that makes an old car smell old. Keep the inside clean and dry, and the car feels 10 years younger than it is, which matters enormously when you go to sell it or simply want to enjoy sitting in it. They also crack the windows and run the fan, not the recirculation, to clear moisture after a rainy drive, so the carpet's dry and the metal underneath stays healthy, small, constant, nearly invisible. And it adds years. Now here is where I have to stop and talk to you directly, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You are thinking this is all fine for people in Japan with their tidy little streets and their careful culture, but you live here, in the real world, with a normal car in a normal driveway, and you are not about to move to Tokyo to save your transmission. I hear you. I thought the very same thing. So let me give you something you can do this week, in your own driveway, with nothing but what you already own, and I promise the very best trick, the one I saved from that old law, is built for exactly your situation. Start with tire pressure. This one is almost free and almost nobody does it right. In Japan, checking tire pressure is treated as basic monthly hygiene, not something you do only when a light comes on. The reason is that a tire loses roughly 1 to 2 pounds of pressure every single month just sitting there, faster in cold weather. Underinflated tires wear out on the edges, drag down your gas mileage by a few %, and run hot, which is exactly how blowouts happen on the highway. Buy a $5 gauge. Check all 4 tires once a month when they are cold before you drive. Set them to the number printed on the sticker inside your driver door, not the number on the tire itself. That one habit adds thousands of miles to a set of tires and puts real money back in your pocket every year. Next, listen to your car with the radio off. This sounds too simple to matter. It is one of the most valuable things I learned. The mechanic in Toyama told me that Japanese owners of the old school drive with the radio off now and then, on purpose, just to hear the car. A new tick, a faint grind when you brake, a hum that changes with speed. Every expensive repair starts as a cheap noise you ignored. Catch it as a whisper and it is a small bill. Wait until it is a scream and it is a tow truck and a fortune. Free. Just listen. Then there is the way they actually drive, and this is where the fuel savings live. The Japanese pioneered what they call eco-driving, and their transport ministry has promoted it for years with real numbers behind it. It comes down to smoothness. Gentle on the accelerator. Look far ahead and coast toward red lights instead of racing up and stamping the brake. Every time you brake hard, you are throwing away fuel you already paid for and grinding down brake pads that cost real money to replace. Smooth acceleration and early coasting have been shown to cut fuel use by something in the range of 10 to 20%. That is not a gadget. That is not a fuel additive. That is just changing your right foot. And it works in the car sitting in your driveway right now. One more that costs nothing. Do not top off your fuel tank after the pump clicks. In Japan, I watched attendants stop the second the nozzle clicked, every time. Squeezing in extra fuel floods a part of your emissions system called the charcoal canister, a part that can cost hundreds to replace, and it can trigger that check engine light you dread. Click means stop. Done. None of those require a plane ticket. None of them require a single new product. They just require you to know what the salesman was never going to tell you. And that brings me back to the reason none of us were ever taught any of this. Because here is the uncomfortable truth I kept circling. In this country, we built an entire system around the car dying. We were sold the idea that a new car every 3 to 5 years is normal, even smart. We were taught that 100,000 miles is old. We finance, we trade in, we finance again, and the meter never stops running. The Japanese looked at the exact same machine and asked a completely different question. Not how soon can I replace it, but how long can I keep it perfect? And the gap between those two questions is measured in tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. If you want to go even deeper into this system, the full philosophy, every habit, and the reasoning behind each one, I have put it all into a book. It is called Japanese Roots, and the full expanded version is the full system, where I lay out everything I uncovered across multiple trips, including the habits that go well beyond cars and into every machine and object you own. There is also Deep Japanese, which goes into the cultural roots that make these practices stick for a lifetime, not just a season. All three are available through the link in the description, and if any part of what I have been telling you has landed, I think you will find a lot more waiting for you there. But let me keep pulling this apart for you right here, because the next layer is where things get really uncomfortable. I ran the math on myself once, and it made me sick. Between trade-ins, interest, and the depreciation I ate by dumping cars while they still had years of life in them, I had thrown away more money on the ownership cycle than I had spent on the cars themselves. All because I never learned the maintenance habits that would have let me simply keep one. So let me give you a few more of these habits. The ones that separate a car that dies at 100,000 miles from one that laughs at 300,000. Change your oil by time, not just by mileage, if you drive short trips. This one surprised me. If you only drive a few miles at a time, your engine rarely gets fully hot, and moisture and fuel build up in the oil and never burn off. That is the harshest kind of driving there is, even though it feels gentle. Japanese short trip drivers change oil on a calendar every few months, not just when the odometer says so. The oil is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy on the most expensive part of the car. Keep the fluids you never think about. Everyone knows engine oil. Almost nobody changes their transmission fluid, and that is exactly how transmissions die. A transmission is the second most expensive thing in your car after the engine, and the fluid inside it wears out and burns just like oil. The old habit I learned was to service that fluid on schedule long before there is any problem, because a fluid change costs a little, and a new transmission can cost as much as the whole car is worth. Same story with brake fluid, which absorbs water over the years and quietly rusts your brake system from the inside. Cheap to flush, brutal to ignore. Protect the rubber. On those older Japanese cars, owners wipe down and condition the door seals and window rubber. I saw that man in Kanazawa doing exactly that in the dark. It seemed obsessive. But cracked, dried-out rubber is how water gets into a cabin, how wind noise starts, how doors leak and interiors rot. A few minutes with a cloth keeps the seals soft and keeps the weather where it belongs, outside. That tiny ritual is the difference between a car that feels sealed and solid at 20 years old and one that whistles and leaks at 8. Park in the shade and use a simple sunshade in the windshield. The sun is a slow acid on a car. It bakes the dashboard until it cracks, fades the seats, and cooks the interior plastics until they smell and crumble. In Japan, sunshades and covered parking are everywhere, not out of luxury, but out of that same relentless preventive thinking. A $10 folding shade in your windshield keeps your dashboard alive for the life of the car. And here is one that saves the most dramatic repair of all. Watch your timing belt if your car has one instead of a chain. On many engines, that belt is on a strict replacement schedule, often somewhere around 60 to 100,000 miles depending on the car. If it snaps while you are driving, on a lot of engines it destroys the whole thing in an instant. Bent valves, ruined pistons, a repair that totals the car. The Japanese owners I met treated that interval as sacred because they knew the belt is a small planned cost that prevents a catastrophic surprise one. Look in your manual tonight. Find out if you have a belt or a chain, and if it is a belt, find out when it is due. That 5 minutes of reading can save your entire engine. Every single one of these comes back to the same quiet philosophy. Small, cheap, boring actions taken before anything breaks. And I finally understood where that philosophy actually came from, because it is not just personality. It is baked into Japanese law. And that is the secret I promised you at the very beginning. Here it is. In 1951, Japan passed something called the Road Transport Vehicle Act, and out of it grew a national inspection system the Japanese call Shaken. Here is how it works. Every passenger car in Japan has to pass a deep, thorough government safety and mechanical inspection, first after 3 years, and then every 2 years after that for its entire life. This is not a wave-through emissions test like we have in most places. It is a serious, expensive, top-to-bottom examination of the brakes, the suspension, the frame, the lights, the emissions, the underbody, everything. Now, most Westerners who hear about Shaken think of it as a burden, a cost, a hassle. And yes, it costs real money. But watch what it actually does to the way a nation cares for its cars. Because that inspection is coming every 2 years, no matter what, every owner keeps their car in genuinely roadworthy condition at all times. Problems get caught and fixed while they are small, because they have to be. Nothing is allowed to quietly rot for a decade. The entire country is forced into preventive maintenance by the rhythm of that inspection, and over 70 years that rhythm became a culture, and that culture became those habits I watched with my own eyes. And here is the part that is a gift to you and me, sitting here on the other side of the ocean, and it is the trick I actually built my whole car life around now. You do not need the Japanese government. You can give yourself your own private Shaken. Put 2 dates on your calendar every year, 6 months apart. On each of those days, you do your own inspection the same way that inspection runs. You check all 4 tires and the spare for pressure and wear. You check every light, front and rear, brakes and signals. You look under the car for leaks and rust. You check every fluid level and its color. You feel the brakes and listen to them. You test the wipers and top off the washer. You look at the belts and hoses for cracks. It takes under an hour, and it costs nothing but your attention. That self-imposed rhythm is the single most powerful thing I took from Japan, because it turns you from a person who reacts to breakdowns into a person who prevents them. It is the exact reason those cars in that Kanazawa driveway run like new at 20 years old. Not a secret product, not a magic additive. A calendar, an hour, and the refusal to wait until something breaks. I have run my own 2 a year shaken for a while now. My last car. I kept it running clean and tight, well past the mileage where I used to panic and trade in. I stopped feeding the trade-in machine. I stopped losing thousands to depreciation on cars I ditched too early. And I stopped lying awake wondering what that new noise was going to cost me, because I catch the noises now while they are still whispers. That old mechanic in Toyama was right about all of us. We buy cars and wait for them to die. They buy cars and refuse to let them age. The difference is not money, and it is not culture you have to be born into. The difference is a handful of small, deliberate habits that someone somewhere decided you did not need to know, because a driver who keeps a car alive for 20 years is a driver who is not buying and financing and trading every few years like clockwork. So here is what I want you to feel right now. You did not just learn some car tips. You reached back and picked up something that was quietly taken from you. The plain old knowledge of how to make a thing last, the knowledge your grandparents had and somebody decided to let fade so the meter could keep running. If you are the kind of person who has always suspected that the simplest, oldest answers got pushed aside so someone else could keep profiting off you, then you already belong here. That instinct you have been carrying is correct. Trust it. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean this specifically. Tell me one thing. Do you back into your parking spot, nose out, the way they do in Japan, or do you pull in nose first, the way most of us were taught? Just those 2 words in the comments, nose out or nose in, and tell me if this video is going to change it. I read them, and I want to know where you stand. And if you want to keep pulling this lost knowledge back into the light with me, come along. This is a small movement of people quietly recovering the things older cultures never threw away. Because the next thing I dug up is about the Japanese method for making a set of tires and brakes last nearly twice as long as mine ever did, using one habit at every single stop sign, and once you see it, you will never drive the same way again. Stay with me. There is so much more they buried, and I am not going to let it stay buried. I saw those cars with my own eyes, and that changed everything. But this video only scratched the surface. Inside the Japanese ways circle, I pick up right where I left off. In there, you can ask me your own question. A real person answers, me or my team. Not a machine. You won't be alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time.